Hi, my name is Kristin and this is Kristin Kraves Books. So we are over a quarter of the way through the year, and I thought it would be fun to do a tag that I saw going around. And I know that the mid-year book tag is really popular, but this is a new one for your quarter reading, and I thought it was a lot of fun. And this was created by Rosen at Rosen's Reading, and I will leave a link to their booktube channel down below. You should definitely subscribe. I thought this was such a clever idea for a tag, and I really do like the questions. It really got me thinking about my reading this year and reminding me of what my goals were in January. So yeah, this is just a refreshing tag, a quick video, just something. I had a rough day on Monday. Sadly, I had to put a cat down that I've had for 15 years, and it was devastating. So this is just a good quick distraction for me. So let's just dive right into it. I don't want to bring anybody down, but so let's get on a positive note. The best books that you read so far. It says, have you ever found a book that you think might be a 2022 favorite? And there are two, and I tried to pick between the two, but I decided I just couldn't. So I have an adult favorite and a YA favorite. And my adult favorite is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee, and I have had this on my shelves since it came out, or maybe a year after that, so at least since 2018. I always knew that it was going to be a favorite. You know, you just have that gut feeling about certain books, and this was one of them. And I was saving it for the perfect time, and the perfect time is now. I've said this before. With the show coming out, I still don't have Apple TV, but I'm so tempted. I just thought now or never. So I read it, I tabbed it to death, absolutely love this. I think that Min Jin Lee does a good job of finding balance in tragedy. There is a lot of tragedy and heartbreak in here, and it felt so authentic. But there's also some semblance of hope, some great family moments, some great food discussions, Korean food, and I learned a lot about the history between China and Korea at this time, a lot that I didn't know and was ignorant to. So it just got me Googling as well. So I love when books have the power to do that, and I really did like Min Jin Lee's writing. A lot of these tabs are just quotes that I thought really stood out. So this is probably going to be a forever favorite of all time. I have no doubt this will definitely be on my best books of the year list. It might even be at the top. And then the book that I read in January, and I didn't think anything was going to top this, but I think Pachinko just might, but this is excellent as well. And this is a YA novel, and it's Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. Again, I've had this on My TBR on Goodreads before we got a cover or anything. I remember seeing the book deal announced, and there was some hype even back then. And I was so excited when this finally came out, but I was putting it off last year because I just knew I was going to love it. Everybody was hyping it up. I just wanted to wait for the right time. So it was one of the first books that I read in 2022, and I completely fell in love with this. It was nothing like I expected. There's actually more mystery in here. It's more heartbreaking than I thought. I wasn't sure how I would feel about this young girl working with the FBI, but the way that it's all plotted, it makes so much sense. I really liked the ending. So there's some great discussions about grief in here as well. I learned a lot about the Ojibwe culture. I live in Northern Ontario, so I'm familiar with some of the dynamics here because this is set in Sault, Michigan, but they often cross the border into Canada to Sault Ste. Marie in Canada. So I'm familiar with some of this. Lots of talk about hockey, which again is a big thing up here, so I understood all that. So yeah, I thought this was so well done, and I hope that Angeline Boulley is working on something else because I will read whatever she writes. Then the next question is, what was your favorite book you read that wasn't quite 5 stars? And I had to go with Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. And I think on another day this could be 5 stars. I could definitely be convinced to bump this up to a 5 stars, but it was a 4, 4.5, and it delivered what it promised to deliver. It actually says on the cover, a novel of high fantasy and low stakes. But I will say I think the stakes were high enough to keep you turning the pages. There was enough interest and tension here to want to continue. But we're following an orc barbarian who decides to retire and opens a coffee shop in a town where nobody knows what coffee is. It's so fun to see these characters come in, discover coffee for the first time, have different reactions to it. Everybody forms these interesting bonds. You got characters of all types. It's so sweet and fun. There's a bit of a sapphic romance, but I actually wanted that to go deeper, and I think that's why it wasn't quite a 5 star for me, but it was perfect. Honestly, this is so good. I think this is one I could recommend to pretty much anyone. And Travis Baldree actually is an audiobook narrator, so the audiobook of this is excellent. And I actually listened to the audiobook, but then I just had to get a copy because this cover is one of my favorite things ever. And I'm so happy for this author because I saw that Shannon McGuire tweeted about this book, and then it got a lot of hype after that, and now Tor actually picked this up and is publishing it under their publishing company. But I really hope that they keep this cover, because I don't think you can get a better cover than this. So we'll see how that all goes, and I guess maybe they'll re-edit it. I didn't notice anything editing wise that would change, but we'll see. I'm opening to having 2 copies of this on my shelf for sure. I'm so excited for this author and for everybody to read this, because I think this is going to get a lot more attention. And the next question is, any 1-star books or least favorite books of the year? Thankfully, I don't have any 1-star books. It's very, very rare for me to get a 1-star, because normally I will just DNF it. I don't get a lot of 2 stars either for the same reasons, but one 2-star that was really disappointing to me was The Maid by Nita Prose. And I noticed a lot of my 2 stars are thrillers, because they're always fast-paced. You can get through them quickly, so you think, why not? I'll just stick with it, and we'll see what happens in the end and see if maybe I'm more satisfied with the ending. And that wasn't the case with this one. The writing was really fast-paced. I understood why so many people liked Molly. I just had a lot of issues with this. I loved the setting, so that was a high point for me. I would love to read more mysteries set in like hotels, and I don't know, I thought this fell into some cliches and stereotypes, and it was really frustrating for me as a reader to read about how everybody treated Molly and took advantage of her. Not everybody, but a lot of people did, and it was just very uncomfortable for me to read about, and I thought there were stereotypes in other ways. It just didn't hit me like it hit a lot of people. And I know that Florence Pugh is set to be the star in this, and that makes me nervous as well, because it's not explicitly said on page, but Molly is thought to be neurodivergent, so I'm always worried about how that's going to be portrayed in movies. But yeah, this might not translate well, but we'll see. I'm open to giving it a shot. But yeah, this was a disappointment for me. I know a lot of people loved it, but just not my thing. The next question is your most read genre, and this really surprised me. I went on the story graph. I love that the story graph gives you all your stats, so I didn't have to calculate this for myself. But I have read 37 books so far in 2022 as of filming this, and 11 of those are fantasy, which is by far my highest genre, and that is so not me. I've never considered myself a fantasy reader, but I'm embracing that I am. It's just a specific kind of fantasy. I haven't tried like Brandon Sanderson or Robin Hobb or John Gwynne or any of those people, but I'm actually open to it. But those are more an investment. I don't read those epic fantasies very often, or pretty much ever. So a lot of the fantasy I read is more witchy and light and fun, like something like this. So yeah, they do add up, and I love them. So yeah, I am gonna call myself a fantasy reader now, when I never did in the past. And then romance is my second, and I've read 10 of those, which is no surprise to me. I love to read a few romances a month. They're quick reads, they're fun reads. I always have a good time with them. And then contemporary is after that with 9. So that's pretty standard for me. That makes sense. But having fantasy number 1 is definitely something different for me, which I'm kind of embracing and kind of loving about my reading this year. The next question is a book that surprised you, and this is combining 2 of the genres of my top genres of the year, fantasy and romance. And this is Not the Witch You Read by April Asher. And the reason this surprised me is because I don't love paranormal romance, at least I don't think I do. And then I read this, and it was so much fun. It was a lot more political than I was expecting, which is great. It is a romance between a werewolf and a magicless witch, and it's kind of a second chance romance as well. So there's a lot of layers to this story. A lot of politics come into play between this couple, and yeah, it was set in like a small town. I was getting a little bit of Gilmore Girl vibes in that, and the audiobook was excellent. So yeah, this really surprised me. I didn't think that it would stay with me as much as it did, but it's actually one that I will recommend and might even re-listen to when October comes around, because it's perfect for that time of year. And I just love these characters. I had so much fun with this book. Next is a book that came out in 2022 already that you want to read but haven't yet. And I actually have 3 of these. So first is Bitter by Kweki Mezi, and I'm shocked I haven't read this yet, because Pet was one of my favorite books of last year, and this is a prequel to this. That I love Kweki Mezi. I will read anything that they write. I just read an e-arc of You Made a Fool Out of Death with Your Beauty, which I thought was really, really good, very complicated. That's going to be a divisive book, because it is very messy and you're going to have complicated feelings with a romance. I will talk about that in a wrap-up, but I'm still thinking about that book. But Bitter is part of Kweki Mezi's YA series, and the main character in this is an artist, which is a trope I love. I love following artists, so I know I'm gonna love this. I just haven't gotten around to it, and it's a short book, so I don't have really any excuses, so this is high priority. Then one that I just purchased is Sundial by Katrina Ward, and I haven't read The Last House on Needless Street, but I want to. And honestly, I saw the UK cover and I thought that was so cool. I'll put a picture of the UK cover up here. And then I looked at the US one or the Canadian one, and this is what it was, and I was so disappointed, but this has really grown on me. I'm getting like major 80s vibes from this. I actually think this is kind of a cool cover. And I've heard that this is a very strange horror. I don't know much about it, but I think that's probably best, but I've heard it's very twisted. So I'm curious about that. I haven't read a lot of horror this year, so this is high priority as well. And then one that I'm tempted to save for summer, but I also want to read right now, is Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. It happened one summer. It was one of my favorite romances of last year, so I really liked Hannah and Fox, what we saw of them in that book, so I'm excited for them to get their own story. This is Friends to Lovers, and I love the town that this is set in, the fishing community, and I think this could be a lot of fun, and I hope we get glimpses of the characters from the first book as well. So yeah, this is one that I might read on the beach, but don't be surprised if you see me reading it much sooner than that. Then the next question is one of the goals that you made that you're succeeding at, and one of my goals was to read more nonfiction because I tend to love all the nonfiction that I read. I'm a huge fan of memoirs. I love like nature books and that kind of thing, so I tend to really love them when I do get to them. So I want to read one a month, and it is April 6th as I'm filming this, and I've read 4 nonfiction titles, so I'm on track. I'd love to do better than my goal, but I am on track for my goal. So the 4 that I've read so far are The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green, which really surprised me. I absolutely adored that. I gave it a 4.25 and highly recommend that on audio. In the Shadow of the Mountains by Sylvia Vasquez Lovato, which is the one I read last month, and this is a memoir, and it's very difficult to read but very powerful, and I highly recommend it. And Selena Gomez is going to star in the movie adaptation, so that'll be interesting. Then Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner, which is probably my favorite of the year so far. This was a hugely popular memoir last year, and I understand why. It's really this author dealing with the loss of her mother, and I cried. And then Why We Sleep, Unlocking the Power of Dreams by Matthew Walker, and this was just interesting to learn more about the importance of sleep. I think we all know how important it is, but this really dives deep into it. I don't know if I bought everything, but it was a fun read. I thought it was interesting. I did learn quite a bit. And then there's so many more nonfiction titles I want to get to. So yeah, I'm still on track for that goal, and I'm happy about it because I think last year I only read about 6 nonfiction, which is unusual for me. I've also made a bit of a dent on my TBR cart. I have a TBR cart put together of books that I want to tackle in 2022. I'm not doing as well as I probably should, but I have read a few books from there. Pachinko was on there, Salt to the Sea, so like books that have been sitting on my shelves for years, I know I'm gonna love, are on that cart, and I'm making a bit of a dent in it, and I'm happy about that. The next question is one goal you made that you need to focus on, and of course this is no surprise, it's going to be completing series. I'm terrible at this. I have completed 1 series this year, and it was a duology, and I'll show you what it was. So I read A Song of Racism Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown during the pandemic, during the first lockdown, and it made me realize that I really do like YA fantasy. And then I waited and waited for the second one to come out, and I think the publishing date kept getting pushed back, and I just sort of forgot about it. And that's A Psalm of Storms and Silence, and I finally read this, and I really, really liked it. I know this one's getting mixed reviews, but I actually preferred it, but that's just the kind of reader I am. I actually liked that this was more about the characters and their journey and the development. Like, a lot happens in here, and then this book is the aftermath of them dealing with that, and I kind of loved it. But this is only a duology. This is the only series I've finished so far this year, so I really need to get on that. I am reading the Memoirs of Lady Trent series. I know I will finish that this year because I'm doing a read-along for that, and actually my live show for that is tonight, so that'll be over by the time you see this. But in April, we are reading the 3rd book. So if you want to catch up, they're quick and easy reads. It's a good time. Obviously, this would be an easy one to do. I don't think there's going to be more books in this series, so I can do that and finish off a series. I am pretty good about finishing romance series because they're more companion novels. They're fun reads, but there are a ton of series I need to do. Oh, I bought the Jade Legacy, so I have Jade War and Jade Legacy. to read, but those books are intimidating, and I've probably started a lot of series, so yeah, that's something I need to focus on, and I know a lot of people have said that this year. And then the last question is to tag new to you bloggers or bookstagrammers or fellow booktubers, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna leave some links for these people down below that you should follow. I've discovered so many people in the book community this year, and it really makes me excited. So yeah, that is it for this tag. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a nice distraction for me, so thank you for being here. I appreciate you all. Bye for now.